Good evening and welcome to the Arundel Camera Club virtual live stream for Thursday, April 28th, 2022. My name is John Milliker and I'm the club president for the 2021-2022 season. The Arundel Camera Club was founded in 1957 and exists to promote the arts, science, and education in all aspects and fields of photography. For more information about us, please visit www.arundelcameraclub.org. Thank you for joining us on our virtual live stream. We're happy to remind everyone that while our club year is winding down, as long as the pandemic continues to melt away, we're looking forward to seeing everyone in September with full in-person meetings that will also continue to be live streamed for out-of-town members and anyone not feeling well. This is also a last call for the awards banquet to be held on Wednesday, May 18th at 7 p.m., the location being Libations Tavern in Severna Park. And we were able to figure out that we can accept checks up until May 4th. If you haven't sent your check in yet and you wish to attend the awards banquet, please send that in ASAP, and also send me and or Jackie an email to let us know that we are going to be we're going to be getting your check in very soon. We have a limit of 45 people, and we would really like to fill that up as much as possible. I would also like to thank Diane Vatcher and Kathleen Steele for volunteering for the nomination committee role. I have sent an email regarding that a few minutes ago. Please see that email if you would like to nominate yourself or another club member to volunteer to hold an officer position. And before tonight's program, here is Christine Milliker with our upcoming schedule.
Good evening. On Saturday, April 30th, this Saturday, there's a field trip to Brighton Dam Azalea Garden, and it should be about the peak time for the azaleas to be in bloom. So go there and join the rest of the club members that show up. On May 5th is our business meeting. Be sure to attend, as this is where the members get a voice and make decisions about our contest themes and other important decisions for the club for the next year. On May 12th is a program by Robin Kent on low light photography. On May 14th, which is a Saturday, there'll be a field trip to Blackwater National Wildlife Refuge. And on May 18th, which is a Wednesday, is our banquet. On May 26th is our last contest, which is the digital club event. See the email from Ron about that. And while the winner doesn't get points, we do award winners in novice and unlimited. The winners get free paid memberships for next year.
Christine, I just want to add one more thing real quick. Everybody should have gotten a survey to submit their ideas for the contest themes for next year. Once that comes in, I think the deadline on that was Sunday, and then we're going to send out a voting link as well. We spend usually so much time discussing the themes at the business meeting, and we run out of time, and we're trying to hold that digitally in a voting and online survey format, at least for this year, to try to speed things up. So if you haven't yet voted and submitted your own themes for that, please do so. It will be an email from me to members at Arundel Camera Club. And we'll once we have those tabulated, we'll revamp the voting and send it back out again. Thank you.
And tonight we have Michael Koren joining us for a presentation on artistic expression through smartphone photography. Michael Koren is a freelance sports and event photographer in the Baltimore, Washington metro area, specializing in youth sports game, time, action, and team portraits. Prior to this, Michael worked professionally shooting models, portfolios, corporate portraits, product photography for catalogs, and client advertising campaigns. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Christine and John and the Arundel Camera Club for inviting me. You can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so welcome everybody. We're going to be talking about, I know on the first slide it said iPhone photography, but we're going to talk about smartphone photography. And because not everybody, I don't know why anybody would not have an iPhone, but not everybody has an iPhone. So we'll talk about smartphone photography. So very quickly, so Christine did a good job reading my bio that I supplied, but I shoot professionally, use sports as Christine mentioned, but I primarily, when I'm shooting for myself, personal projects and that sort of thing, I'm shooting using my iPhone. And that's my source of inspiration, is going in, taking a picture, and then seeing what kind of apps that I can use to alter the picture or just enhance it ever so slightly. So pretty much every picture requires some kind of editing, whether it's color contrast, saturation, cropping, rotation, something like that. And so every picture goes through that. And I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite apps also. So I am going to start with the presentation. So here we go, artistic expression through smartphone photography. Also, so if anybody has any questions, I would just like to mention it's never an interruption. So please ask. You're going to go through the application you're using, Facebook, I believe, type in your question, and Christine will jump in and ask. So don't be shy or hesitant asking questions. Never an interruption. So here's your inspirational quote of the evening. So happiness lies in the joy of achievement, thrill, creative effort. And what that means to me is the picture is not the picture until you do something with it. So the creative effort is actually sometimes just taking the picture, but usually you have to do something with it. Like I mentioned, some kind of editing. And I'll be talking about that. So as we all know, the mobile phone has its limitations. And a lot of people will say, well, it's not a real camera, or I use the real camera when I want to do real serious photography. Well, to me, I take those limitations and I make those advantages. So the limitation of lens selection, find unique angles. So the old days when you were walking around with your K1000 and your nifty 50, you had to find unique angles. You didn't have your wide angle, you didn't have a zoom, you didn't have a telephoto. So you had to make do with what you have. So a lot of newer phones have multiple lenses, but they're still limited. So you don't truly have a zoom as far as a mechanical zoom on a phone. You can choose different lenses, but that's not zooming. That's just choosing which prime lens you want to do. And a lot of you may be screaming into the Ethernet saying, like, well, I have that pinch and zoom thing. Well, that's technically a zoom, but it's not the best quality way of enlarging your pictures, because you're just enlarging the pixels that are on your screen. That's digital zoom. So that's no real zoom. So that's like what I was saying is a limitation. Get closer or crop later. You can do the same. Your fixed aperture, embrace that limited depth of field. And there's also software built into a lot of the phones, which will at least make it look like there's more depth of field than there is. It's using computational photography, which our big black cameras don't have, or you just embrace the limited depth of field. And that small sensor, it is a small sensor. There are some tricks that software has, but basically you just have to look for better light. Sometimes a lot of the newer phones will run a longer exposure program that will just take multiple pictures and it will stitch it together for you, and you get, say, a 30-second exposure built into the camera. And you have the ability to eliminate noise because it stacks all the pictures. It does a wonderful job. So again, that becomes an advantage because you're using a phone. Big black camera can't necessarily do that. So I'm going to talk about some tips and techniques just to get you started. So on your screen, when you have your camera fired up on your phone, if you tap the screen, and this works on all phones, if you tap the screen, that sets your focus and exposure. And a lot of people that use mobile phones don't even know it can do that. So you just tap on the screen. If you have your phone handy, just pick it up right now, just point it at something, tap on the screen, and you'll see that it focuses and it sets the exposure at the same exact place where you're tapping. So if you tap on a light area, it's going to make your picture darker. If you tap on a dark area, it makes your picture lighter. And because of that, that may set your focus correctly, but it may set your exposure incorrectly. So to go over that, to what you want to do is you swipe. So on an Apple device, you swipe your finger up and down after you tap. Swipe your finger up and down, and it will make your picture expose darker down and lighter up. And then on an Android device, it's usually, and most Androids are very different, you swipe right and left along the bottom of the screen, and you can adjust your exposure. So similar to the big black camera, you can lock your focus and exposure. So what you do is a long tap, lock your focus and exposure. That's pretty much true on all phones, whether it's an Android or an Apple. And once you do that long tap to lock your focus and exposure, it's the same exact thing as up here. And then you can later swipe either right, left, top, or up, down in order to adjust your exposure. So the advantage is long tap, locking your focus and exposure. You can pre-focus let's say you're taking a picture of an insect that's going to land on a flower. You can pre-focus on the flower where the insect is going to be, and when it lands where it's supposed to be, you just take your picture, and your camera's already focused. The exposure is already set for what you need it to be, and you can get a picture a lot quicker. I do recommend on all cameras you set the flash to off. Never, never, never use the auto flash. And the reason is basically your flash is good for walking down dark steps, reading a menu in a restaurant, finding keys in a bag, that type of thing. That's what your flash is used for on your phone, your flashlight. And for photography, it really does not help anything. It usually makes a very harsh, glaring shadow, if at all, if it's effective at all. And then after 5 feet, it really has no effect anyway. So all you're doing is draining your battery, annoying everybody that's around you. So just turn your flash off. If you have HDR mode on your phone, set it to auto. Let the magic happen. Don't fight it. Just set it to auto. And if you have live mode, I don't know what it's called on Android because I do use an iPhone, but you know what I'm talking about. It has the phone takes pictures before you actually take a picture and after you take your picture, stitches them together. Leave that on. And that's a little trick, and I'm going to show you that later on another slide. You can choose your actual exposure later on among the, say, 20 that it took in the 1 second that it's on. So leave that on. That's good. And then set your phone to turn on a grid. So it's a rule of thirds grid you can display on your screen. And that's very, very helpful in composing a good photograph with really good composition, and also checking to make sure your horizon line is level. So panoramics, I'll show you an example later, can be used for both horizontal and vertical pictures. And then use your volume key as a shutter release. So you're not always, if you want to do that selfie, use your thumb on the volume key and take your picture. So some of my favorite camera apps, aside from the built-in app, and there's some reasons for using an outside camera app. So this is an iOS only, Camera Plus 2, and then Open Camera is Android only. And all the other three that are down here, ProShot, Lightroom Mobile, and Visco, are both Android and Apple. So one of the major advantages to using an outside camera app is you can focus manually. So you cannot focus manually using like your finger swiping right, left, up, or down, whatever it may be, on your subject. So you can tap to focus, which is not manual focus. It's kind of saying, I want you to autofocus in this area, but you can manually focus using one of these apps. And then also, a lot of built-in camera apps do not have white balance settings, or maybe they've turned off or limited the ability to shoot RAW. So all of these, or rather Camera Plus 2, Open Camera, Lightroom Mobile, and ProShot allow you to shoot RAW, allow you to manually focus, allow you to manually set your white balance, and also allow you to manually set your shutter speed. So your aperture is fixed on all phones. It's usually, say, 1.8, 1.4 in that range, but you can manually choose your shutter speed using an outside app, not the built-in app. You can't choose your shutter speed, it's automatic. Visco doesn't have necessarily a lot of these manual big black camera style controls. It has a lot of nice filters that people like. So if you like adding filters to your picture before you take it, Visco is the app for you. So what I'm going to do, I was going to share my screen to show you my phone, just to give you a just to give you a idea. What am I doing, Christine?
It had come up once.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, everybody. Here we go. Allow.
There you go.
All right, so I'm going to turn on my camera app. This is the built-in camera. So you see my laptop, and everybody's there. You're out in the world. So what I'm going to do is tap on my screen, and when I tap on my screen, that sets the focus and exposure for this area. So if I take a light area that's up here and I tap there, it actually changes my exposure. You see the difference there. So tap on a light area, it makes everything darker. Tap on a dark area, it makes everything lighter. So it actually changes the focus. and that's exactly what we want. But I can adjust that exposure by just taking my finger and sliding down. And then I'm adjusting the exposure to what I want it to be, and I'm adjusting, tapping on the focus to make sure I know where that is. So if I do a long tap right here, so actually let me do this. As I move closer to my keyboard, the phone is automatically going to change its focus as I move closer. So it's using autofocus and it changes, it adjusts, and everything is nice and sharp, and everything's nice and sharp. And I can tap focus if I really want to. So if I want, let's say, number 7 to be in focus, tap there, or I can tap on the end, and that's in focus. So I'm setting my focus and exposure. But if I want, I can tap, long tap. Now you see at the top of my phone screen it says AF lock. That's automatic exposure, automatic focus lock. So now as I move, it stays locked on that focus point. So I can come in and focus. I've locked my focus, and now I'm waiting for something to land on, say, a flower, and then I can just take the picture by pressing the big white button at the bottom. But I can also, as I mentioned, I can also change my exposure by dragging my finger down. So now my exposure is still locked, but it's adjusted. Or I can adjust it up if I choose to get slightly or very overexposed if that's what I want to do. When my focus is locked, my exposure is locked, just like the big black camera. So that's a nice little thing that you can you do with your phone. A lot of people don't know you can do that. So we were going to talk about, I'm going to mention panoramic, but I'm going to show you a little trick since my phone camera is on. When you on an iPhone, and this is specific to an iPhone, when you go into the panoramic mode, you have an arrow that tells you that you have to take your picture and you have to move your phone in the direction of this arrow. So it says move your iPhone continuously when taking a panoramic. So you must go this direction if you're going to take a panoramic. So you start your panoramic by pressing the button and then just slowly move your phone. You must keep the arrow on the center line that's right here. If not, it doesn't work. But what if, I'm going to say this out into the world, but I don't expect anybody to answer me. What if you want to take the picture, but you want to go the other direction? So a lot of people are thinking, well, I'll just turn my phone upside down. You can do that. That's no fun. Tap on the arrow and it jumps to the other side of your screen. And then from there, you can now move this direction if that's what you want to do. All right, so end of that portion. Nope, sorry. I'm not good with this screen thing. All right, here we go back to our regularly scheduled program. So, Christine, are there any questions in the chat so far?
No, not yet.
Okay. All right, so this is live mode, and what I was saying is, what you do is you take a picture. There's a feature in live mode where, so again, it's taken when your camera mode is on, when your camera is on, when you're in camera app, your phone is taking pictures, whether you know it or not. It's just taking pictures in the background. So what happens is when you press the shutter release, it closes a gate and it stops. It freezes that motion and it continues to take pictures after you've taken your actual picture, what you think you're taking a picture when you press the white button. Then it closes another gate. So then you basically have this tube of time that you've captured, and it's roughly 1 second, maybe 2 seconds of time that you've captured. So the time before you've actually pressed the button and the time after you've pressed the button. And in the middle of that will be the time you actually press the button. So what you can do in live mode is, let's say I took a picture of this water that's flowing, the river water that's flowing. In live mode, you can select a feature called long exposure. So live mode is regular, and then you can make a little animation that loops back and forth, or you can bounce back and forth or loop back around and around, or choose long exposure. And this is what you get over here. So it's stitching everything that's around from before, everything that's moving, it's stitching it all together. And then you can get a long exposure in on your phone with no tripod. And it's just amazing. In the middle of the day, no neutral density filters, no tripod, no fuss, no muss. Just put live mode on, go into your settings, and choose long exposure. Now, this is for an iPhone. Android has a similar feature, and I forget exactly what they call it, but it works the same way. And you go in and you set from live, you set it to long exposure, and you will get the same exact results. So
Going
here's,
back, I'm sorry, going back to the panoramas,
uh-huh,
Alan is asking, how do you make panoramas go vertically in iPhone?
good question. You said that was Alan?
Yeah.
So, Alan, all you do is you turn your phone on its side. So the arrow, the direction of travel never changes. So in other words, when you're holding your phone like you would normally be holding your phone in a vertical orientation, the arrow is telling you you must go right left. When you turn your phone 90 degrees so that it's on the horizontal axis, the arrow is still telling you which direction to go, but in this case, it's going up and down. So for Android users, um, I forgot to mention this on the panoramic. Android users, you never have to tap the arrow to tell it which way to go. You just start moving your phone, and Android figures it out for you and it will adjust. So similar for Android users, when you're using the panoramic mode, you turn your phone to the horizontal orientation, and you would just move it up and down to take a vertical panoramic, and the phone will catch up and figure out what you're doing and just take that picture. On an iPhone, you just turn your phone, and then you have to decide, do I want to start at the bottom of my vertical, or do I want to start at the top of my vertical? And you do that by tapping the arrow to say, okay, here's, I'm starting at the top and working my way down, or bottom, working my way up.
Kathy asks, where is live mode?
So live mode is, I'll show you on my screen at the risk of totally not understanding how to use this this thing. I'm going to try it. Here we go. I'm still, I'm sharing now, right?
Yes, you're sharing. You're
Yeah,
still on the computer, though.
right. Okay.
There you go.
So where is live mode? And it depends on your phone. And you're seeing my phone screen, I hope.
Yes.
So it depends on your phone. So on my phone or an Apple device, it's up here. It's that yellow highlighted concentric circle. So if it's yellow, that means it's activated. That means it's on. So when I tap that, I can turn it to go off, or I can set it to be on automatic, or I can set it to be on the way I like it. And now it's on. So live mode for me, the way I have my camera set up, it's on all the time, no matter what. And what that allows is I get to choose my picture. So since I'm in the camera mode, I'll show you. I'm
And
going to,
Julie and Terry are both asking how to get to long exposure.
I'll show you that right after I show this. That's a good question. So I just want to show, here's a live mode photo, and this is on the long exposure. This is the not long exposure version. So again, here's the long exposure version of that. But I do want to show you, there's a really clever thing you can do. So if you go to edit, and again, this is an iPhone, and I tap this, I'm just going to show you. These are all the pictures that the phone took. In the middle is what Apple has recommended. So here, as I'm moving my phone, as I'm panning across as the car is moving, I can choose any one of these frames I want. And once I stop here, I tap make key photo, and that is now my photo that I would be sharing with everybody out in the world. So this is the photo that Apple suggests, but this may be the photo that I suggest. But I'm happy with that. Maybe this is the picture, but basically, I don't really care which photo I suggest because it's a long exposure photograph anyway that I haven't edited, I haven't done anything with. So the boring picture is here, just a live photo of a car crossing through an intersection. The more interesting version of that is a longer exposure. And then when I edit for color contrast and saturation, it becomes a little bit more interesting. So back to how to get long exposure. You can only get long exposure in dark environments. It's an automatic setting. So you can see it's up here. It's kind of dark in the room I'm in. If I cover my phone, oh wait, let's turn it on. So right now it's turned off, that's why. So if I cover my screen, hopefully, oh, I'm sorry. It won't work if you're in live photo. So if I cover the screen, it automatically goes into a long exposure mode. So the darker I try to make my screen, which I can't do, is 3 seconds. It can go up to 30 seconds. But again, it's an automatic feature. You have no control of it. You can't set it to go long exposure unless you use an outside app, and then you can set your shutter speed to whatever you want it to be, as long as 30 seconds. Or there are other apps out in the world that allow you to take longer exposure. So one of my favorite is Spectre. Another one is Slow Shutter. And you can set that to say, this one you can set it to 30 seconds, and this one you can set it anywhere from 1 to 30 seconds. This one has options, I believe it's 3, 5, and 30 or something like that, or 3, 10, 30. But it's a great app. So these are all my slow shutter apps. Or Camera Plus 2, which is hiding down here on the bottom of my screen. I can set my shutter speed to any number that I want it to be, up to 30 seconds.
George says Android motion photo is like a live mode. Icon
Yeah.
is a rectangle with an arrow on the right.
Thank you, George. And already, again, I forgot, what was that called again?
Motion photo?
Motion photo, yes. So a lot of people understand it as the Harry Potter effect. So that's when, if you remember from the movies, and I'm sure everybody's seen the movies, Harry Potter's parents are waving at him in the picture. Well, that's the motion effect. You can do that with your picture if you choose. So in other words, if I go back to my car and I go to Luke, I can just have the car going back and forth all day, just like Harry Potter's parents are waving at him. Okay. Nope.
You're almost there. There you are.
Good. So back to our regularly scheduled program. So again, here's another picture. This is a reservoir in Baltimore County, Liberty Lake. Dam was overflowing one day, so I got down real low to the water and just turned on live mode, and I shot a picture in the middle of the day, and it converted over to live mode. You get that beautiful moving water style picture. So it's real fun to use. I highly recommend everybody use that. And this is pretty much straight out of camera. When you do live mode, it does crop. In other words, like this is the standard and this is the live mode version. So it has some motion correction built in automatically to help stitch this together. So what it does take a little bit of real estate off your picture, and that's just fine. You just have to understand it's going to do that. So for editing, here's your second inspirational quote of the evening. So start with something and then become something else. Kind of like that moving car picture that is a seed, and I don't know where it's going to go. It may end up becoming a weed, or it may become a flower. You never know. But you take the picture and then you start playing with it and you see what you're going to get. So some of my favorite editing apps, and I don't have a lot of apps on my phone. I don't use a lot of different apps, but these are kind of go-to apps that I use a lot. So one of them is Snapseed, and I recommend that for every phone. It's free, so cost of ownership is easy to get into. It's free. It's made by Google. And if I had one app on my telephone, on my camera phone, and I could only have one app, it would be Snapseed. And it's that good. So it does all the editing that I would ever need. I do like stitching pictures together in order to, and also all of these, except all of these are for both Android and Apple. So I do like stitching pictures together as if you would in Photoshop. It has, this app has layers, and you can add 12 different pictures together and have your layers and your masking and do everything you want to do that you can do on your big computer. You can do on your phone or a tablet. So if you have an iPad or an Android-based tablet, you can do that there. So superimposes that app. Touch retouch only does one thing. It takes things out of your picture. So power lines, soda bottles, family members, ex-family members, you can take them out of your picture with touch retouch. It does a really good job. It only does that one thing. So a lot of apps have healing tool built-in, like Snapseed included, but this one does a better job, so I get that out. Then Spectral Art and Artista Oil are both from the same company. They're from a company called Jixie Pix. This adds a really nice electric look to your picture, and this adds an oil painting look to your picture, and it does a great job. You can download these apps also for your desktop computer, whether it's running Mac or Windows. Then, of course, there is Lightroom Mobile. So if you subscribe to the Lightroom ecosystem, the photography bundle, you have enabled Lightroom Mobile. You can get Lightroom Mobile on any phone, any tablet. But if you have the subscription, it unlocks certain features. And one of those great features is using Apple's or Adobe's cloud feature. And you can do a lot of things, syncing your catalog, your desktop catalog with your phone with your desktop, all kinds of things like that. Also, Lightroom allows you to shoot RAW, it allows you manual control, as far as focus and exposure, exposure and shutter speed. You can do all that in Lightroom Mobile. So I talked about Snapseed. It has everything you could ever want in an app as far as editing. Everything. So perspective healing are big things. It does have multiple exposures. Masking, layers. The only thing is you can't reorganize the layers. So keep that in mind. It does have brush tools, selective editing, add text and frames. Everything you could possibly think of is in Snapseed. And again, the price is perfect. Touch Retouch is generally, I think it's about a $5 app, and it only does one thing. Like I said, it removes stuff. So if I have a telephone pole here that I don't want in the picture, I just highlight it and hit go, boom, it's gone. I mean, it's that easy. So no matter what you do, no matter what's in your picture, just about, you can remove it. The nice thing is it has a clone stamp. So if you can't necessarily highlight something and remove it, you can take maybe sky and just paint it over. So that's a way of removing, is by adding something. And then superimpose allows, again, multiple layers, masking, all kinds of editing adjustments, everything you can think of. Basically, it's Photoshop in the palm of your hand. It's like full-blown Photoshop in the palm of your hand. And it's a very steep learning curve, but it's well worth it once you figure out how to use it. And then Jixie Pix apps, like I said before, there's 28 mobile apps they have available, from painting, drawing, black and white. You can create puzzles, grunge effects. They have an app that will put snow in your picture or rain. I like Artista Oil and I like Spectral Art a lot, and I'll show you some examples where I use that. And then, of course, Lightroom Mobile. So cloud storage, and that requires a subscription. It has a camera built in. And again, everything that you have with Lightroom. So non-destructive editing, you can set ratings, keywords. It syncs with your desktop software or Lightroom software if you're running CC, or even if you're running the other version of Lightroom on your desktop. Everything syncs together. So I'm going to go through some before and after pictures. You may recognize this good-looking guy. So I happened to, actually, this is an accident. I shot a picture of John at an event in Harper's Ferry 6, 7, 8, almost 9 years ago. And I just ran it. So as you know, John does alternative processes with his large cameras using film, or actually, like film-based chemicals. And I thought I would take it and run it through an app that does an alternative process to an alternative process. So it's just a fun little thing. And so you can do things like that. So again, another before and after. You take, just about every picture requires some kind of editing. So I do a lot of street photography. I do teach at Capitol Photography Center and at Montgomery College, and I'll show you that later. But so this is kind of like a photograph. I saw this. It's like one picture on the wall, and she's enjoying that. Didn't want to walk into a room and disturb that mood, so you just kind of take a picture. And all you have to do later on is edit. One thing that I did is I took away that little distracting placard that's on the wall here, so you don't see that. Lighten it up, and it's it's a little bit better photograph now. Cropping, a little bit of light, contrast, saturation. Again, before and after. So everything, a lot of these go through Snapseed. That's pretty much maybe sometimes the only thing I do. But the nice thing about the phone is you can choose different perspectives because it is so small. You can lay it pretty much down on the ground and then shoot up. So the autofocus does a great job, where you flip the camera around so you have on selfie mode and you can focus so you can see exactly your framing and how you want to do that. So a little bit of cropping, color enhancement, add some drama, and there's before and after. So again, here's another street photo. When you see a pigeon walking in the bus lane, you take a picture of the pigeon and then convert the black and white in Snapseed, increase contrast and cropping to remove out the distracting elements. So again, you get a lot of detail out of these camera phones. And I will tell you, this photograph was taken with an iPhone 4. So if you do the math, I don't know how many decades ago that was, because we're up to the 13, but this was taken with a 4 and cropped heavily. So basically just like that, this type of crop. And I did that just to isolate what I wanted to make this a stronger photograph, because I like that little framing device. I like the empty hand. I like the tattoos. Converted black and white because it's not about the color, what's going on here. It's more about the shape and the pattern that's on the arm. So this is a app. This is like that superimpose app that I was speaking of earlier. So you're in a restaurant, take a picture. Rather than taking a picture of your food, just take a picture in the restaurant. And there's a very big fish tank. This happens to be at Disney. And then walk around the park and look for one of these and then just put them together. So you just get a fun thing here that if there's an emergency, you break this glass rather than that. And again, stitching things together. So using, this is a 4x5 format camera, the lens, and I have in my library pictures of mannequin heads, and decided just to take and superimpose using the app Superimpose, put that into the lens to make it look like there's kind of like sort of a reflection in the lens, what it would be taking a picture of. And again, both of these were shot with an iPhone 4. So more before and after, a little more of a street photo. I'm in a toy store. This little guy is very, very small, maybe 3 inches across this way. So you just get close with your phone, embrace the limited depth of field because that's what we want. Focus on the back, and then just go into super touch, retouch, remove that, add a little bit of drama, and make it look like Mr. Banner is going to be running around New York. So again, another before and after. This is that electric effect that's in that Jixie Pix app called Spectral Art. So it gives more like an electric look. It's really nice. So just more of just a boring type of photo, and then you just dress it up a little bit with some more of electric, webby looking things. This is all Snapseed. So add some glamour glow, enhance contrast, saturation. A lot of people go to the Washington Mall to take pictures of the cherry blossoms near the Jefferson Memorial. Well, if you go back by the castle, the Smithsonian Castle, there's a magnolia garden. Just take those pictures and avoid the crowds. So again, stitching things together. So in the National Gallery of Art, if I remember, there were kids that were going through a project and they were given colored pencils to color their version of this piece of artwork. So I just took a picture of the artwork and I took a picture of the pencils and I sat down and I made my version of the artwork using their pencils. So just stitching them together, and blending modes, you can do that in Superimpose also. So another before and after. This is using the panoramic mode, the vertical panoramic. So I wanted to be relatively close, and all I cared about was this mermaid that's outside this building in Baltimore City. So I started here, worked my way up, and just put her in the picture. And then lots of apps later on, I created something like this. So again, back to the Picasso. I don't know where it's going to lead, but this is what I got using different apps. Many of you have been to the prison in Philadelphia. A lot of people take pictures of the barber chair, and so I did, because that's what you have to do. It's part of the thing. But then you dress it up in an app. This is all Snapseed. So drama, dark. Actually, no, sorry. This is Snapseed and that spectral art to kind of create a little bit more webbing on that wall and make it look a little bit more sinister than it really is. This is just in an antique store, kind of like where I was shooting the mannequin heads. So these masks were in a table facing up towards the ceiling. Take that picture, flip it around, darken the areas I don't necessarily want you to look at. And again, close focus ability on these phones are amazing. You tap the focus to make sure the eye in the front is in focus, let everything else go out of focus. So this is using an app called Slow Shutter, and what it does, you have an option of stitching everything to make it smooth, or give it the look as if it was actually taking pictures. So what the app does, it takes pictures at roughly 60 frames a second or 120 frames a second. So I chose the option to have it so that I could see the gradations between the picture. And then so this is a high wheel bicycle race at or penny farthing, I believe it's called, in Frederick, which they run in the summer, somewhere around July-ish, August. So you use the panning effect as they go by, kind of like that car. So this is my inspiration, the earlier car picture. I don't know what I'm going to get, but once you start adding color, contrast, saturation, then you start getting magical things. So if you increase contrast on these areas, then you start to see wheels show up and things like that, add some really graphic elements to it. And then this is like the HDR. So I had been using a specific HDR app, but you could use the HDR feature of your phone. We all know, hopefully, that means high dynamic range. So the phone takes a picture at very highly overexposed, then takes a picture that's underexposed, stitches them together, and then this is what you get. So I didn't use the built-in HDR function. I did use an app to create this that's specific to HDR. And it does the reason is that it has a wider range of under and over rather than what the phone has built in. But I think the results are really nice. I was very, very happy with it. So you can have detail in the window and then detail along the stairwell. And this is using the Jixi Pix painting app, oil painting with, say, unfinished edges, shot into the sun on purpose to get the sun rays and have that go. So this is the Museum of American Indian in DC. So I thought, I like this version a little bit better. I take a lot of pictures of carousels, merry-go-rounds, whatever you want to call it. This is a painting app that just takes that little center here. I crop that out, super saturated it. And then the nice thing about this one app, I think it's called Brushstroke, that allows you to add your signature, your actual signature that you would sign on the screen. So that's a nice little feature of that app. It's called Brushstroke. So this is a panoramic Baltimore Harbor at the Museum of Industry. And so I teach classes there, and you just take panoramic across the harbor, but then you put it in an app called Circular, and it just takes all that great stuff that's here and makes it into a little tiny planet. So Circular, and then you can add another app on top to add the crystalline effect to make it look like a little crystal ball. And this, to me, is a much better picture. And then there's an app called Kaleidocam. So it varies what the name is. Some of them go in and out, but look for an app you can do a kaleidoscope. So this is just in a gift shop in Williamsburg, and you just go to Kaleidocam and create something a little more creepy than just doll singing. And then Kaleidocam at the Portrait Gallery in DC. So great ceiling, just take a picture. I was actually teaching class and waiting for my class to start. I just turned around and took a picture with no intention of anything. And then I decided just to put it into some apps and see what I get. And I put it into Kaleidocam, and it really transformed it. So this picture by itself is just a terrible picture, like very distracting elements over here. There's nothing, no strong center of interest, nothing at all. But you put it into an app, you never know what you're going to get. And this is what I got. And I chose to make it dark and sinister looking because that's just, I just felt it looked better that way. So any questions, Christine?
No, there hasn't
Okay.
been any.
Okay, so I'm going to jump into, I'm going to give you editing extreme examples. So not everything has to be extreme, but I'm going to show you my work process from one picture, and then there's going to be 12 pictures later. I'm just going to show you kind of not the exact apps or how I did this, but again, I said I take pictures of carousels a lot. This is the one that's in Ocean City. There's one in Ocean City. It's indoors. It's historic, and it's usually not very well lit. It's kind of dark honestly in the room. So if you use, we're all photographers. We understand panning, and I'm panning along with this creature as it goes by, and I was taking lots and lots of pictures as it goes by. So all my goal was, as I was using this, is thinking I want the eye to be as sharp as possible. So the speed of my camera and it going by had to be the same, and I had to have focused on that distance. So while the ride was stopped, I positioned myself and I focused on the distance where I knew this was going to be. So while it was stopped, and then once it started spinning, all I had to do was tap the shutter every time it went by as I was moving the phone along at the same speed. And the goal is to hope that I was moving at the same speed to get the eye as sharp as possible. The background intentionally, because it's a panning effect, is going to be blurry, and that's my goal. So run it through Adapt, and this is kind of like that spectral art app to add electric rays and webs and stuff like that, and change the contrast, saturation, because why not? Tone it down a little bit, run some Gaussian blur over it, make it look more sinister by adding a little bit more dark lines to it. Again, I don't know where I'm going with this while I'm doing it, but I'm doing screenshots as I was playing with this just to see what would happen. Then I adjust the hue and saturation to go purple. And I hate purple, so I'm going to adjust this hue and saturation to make it blue. So it's starting to look different. Crop it because this is just a bad crop. Crop it, get a better center of interest. Add some more Gaussian blur, a little bit more vignette on the sides. Then there's an app called Percolator, which is iPhone specific, and it adds bubbles. Because if you have one of these unicorns, why wouldn't you have bubbles? Change the saturation and color. Flip it around because it's just a better picture flipped, and add a little bit more bubbles, change the bubbles, and I believe this is the final image of what I got. And this is the lead photo. So from this before to this after, quite a difference. And all it was is going through apps and no more than playing is really what it is. So there was no goal in this. When I started the editing, when I took the picture, the only goal was to make sure I had an eye that was sharp so that whatever happened in the end was whatever happened. So this is the lead picture of my advertising, and it's kind of my favorite little unicorn picture.
A couple questions for you.
Great.
John asks, do you, sorry, the stream went beyond. And I just went out. Do you like those lens clip-on things for cell phones, or are they more gimmicks?
Good question. My opinion only, they're gimmicks. So the major, so every cell phone, so there's two things to consider when you're using a cell phone lens clip-on. So if it's a clip-on, that implies that if you have a case on your phone, and just about 99.999% of people have a case on their phone. So if the clip-on and you're clipping it onto your case, it's not really fitting very, very well. Now, or you use the lens accessory system that has its own case. So the case is designed around the phone, and then you clip the phone onto that case that's designed for it. That's your best quality. They're relatively expensive. So one thing that I really like about cell phone photography, smartphone photography, is the fact that I don't carry around a camera bag. I don't carry around extra batteries, extra memory cards, lenses. I don't worry about all that stuff. I like taking pictures. I like photography for the sake of photography, not all the gadgets that are part of that. So for me, I find that the lenses are more gimmicks. I would much rather crop the picture or be creative using the limitations that are abundant with the phone and make them advantages for me by changing my angle, making sure that I'm looking at things in a new way and trying to solve problems and being more creative solving problems with my phone. Not all pictures can be taken. And sometimes you just have to know when to walk away. And that's the way it is. So even if I have my big black camera and I'm taking pictures and I don't have the exact lens I need, in other words, there's maybe a bald eagle 500 yards away and I just don't have the right lens with me, you're just not going to take the picture. That's the way it is. So you just have to look for the advantages, what you have available to you, and use that. So if the lens clips on like a uh, non-dedicated case, you clip on, it's usually low quality. It's going to fall off. It's not fit very well. Don't even bother using it. Or if it's dedicated with a case, it's usually very expensive, very finely made, and it's like having another prime lens that you're carrying around in a camera bag. So I hope I answered that question. Long answer, short question, but good question.
One more question from John. Can you discuss your favorite ways to back up your photography from the phone?
Yeah, my favorite is Lightroom Mobile. So every Lightroom Mobile looks at my camera roll and it puts everything in the Lightroom in the Adobe Cloud. And then when I turn my computer on, my desktop computer, and I open Lightroom, everything is synchronized. Then I'm safe. I can delete it off my phone. I can even delete it out of the Adobe Cloud because it's on my desktop computer. And from my desktop computer, I save that 3-5 different ways. Cloud backup, NAS, external hard drive. So everything is copied 3, 4, 5 times elsewhere. So I don't have no problem deleting it off the phone or deleting it out of the Adobe Cloud to free up space because you get a certain amount of space. So I use that as a holding area. So from the phone to Adobe Cloud down to my desktop, and I'll have weeks and weeks before I have to start bumping up against memory restrictions. And so that nothing to worry about there. That's my favorite way of doing it.
Okay, thank you.
Good. All right, so look for pictures everywhere. And so this is your inspiration to help you go out all the places you normally go. I'm just going to show you some examples of just some of my photography. So go into a grocery store. So again, you're not a threat when you're in a grocery store with your phone. And because everybody has a phone, you're not a threat. Look for a good composition. And this one, I added, say, a watercolor oil painting effect to it just to make it look a little bit different. So this one, if you're in just a boring area like a parking area, you can take pictures. And this is in Florida after an evening storm, and after late afternoon storm, you always get a rainbow. And you can just be a photographer, look for an interesting composition to find something. A lot of people take pictures of rainbows, but you can take a picture of a rainbow and line it up with something to make it a little bit more interesting. So you don't need a special big black camera to do that. You just need some imagination, and you need the camera that's with you in order to do things like that. So this is, again, stairs. This is a spiral staircase in the Apple Store in New York, and using just regular photography techniques of waiting for the moment, waiting for the right moment. You'll hear a lot of judges tell you that you should have 5 images, 5 things, odd numbers in your photograph if you have subjects. So you're just doing things like that. You're waiting for the separation between people. You're pre-focusing on an area, and you're just taking pictures as they go by. So everything you would do with your normal camera, you can do it with your phone. So public area, this is an airport in Paris. So basically, I just cropped this to square. I had a little bit of frame around it. I enhanced the color. I had a low shutter here because it was kind of dark. So the baker is moving, and I intended that. I went for in other words, I was happy that it was blurry. So everything here is sharp. And what I did is I just burned in the dark area that I don't want you to see. So the racks and the trash cans and the wrappers and things like that. So all that's burned in so you don't see that. And all you're looking at here is the baker putting the wares out. And this is the sign that goes over the bake shop that's in the airport. So this is using 3 different apps in order to create. So one app was superimpose. So I'm stitching different pictures together. So it's all one picture, But what I did is I took the picture and I applied an oil painting effect over the entire picture. Then I used superimpose to mask out everything where I didn't want an oil painting. So that's all of this area. So again, oil painting up here just for the windows. So, and then I used an app called Alien Sky to place a little starburst right here on the nose to make it look like she's looking at a phone. And she was, but I made it more apparent. So just to bring your eye to her face, I made that a little bit lighter with a little starburst, put it all together into one picture, and pretty much did this in about 15, 20 minutes while I was sitting on a train going between Baltimore and New York. So fairs and festivals, this is Fun Fest in Baltimore City. You can take pictures. Again, you pretend that you're listening to music or sending a text message or an email. I just put my phone near a mirror that was there for people to try on sunglasses. So this lady, who I didn't know, put on sunglasses and put her face near the mirror right next to my phone. She had no idea I was taking pictures. And I just tapped the shutter release, focus. I tap on the screen to make sure this is in focus in the background. And that's the picture I get. So I do a lot of street photography and pre-focus, set the focus and exposure to here, because what happens is if something walks in front of your phone or any camera, the autofocus will tend to focus on what's in the foreground. So that would have ruined the shot. So I wanted this to be in focus. So basically, because this is New York, 10 million people are going to walk between me and this guy. And I just wait for the right person. So the right person had their hand up to your face with the left side up here holding a phone and the arm outstretched. It was just the perfect way of doing that. What I was hoping to get, that's what I got. So the title of this picture is In Mobile Phone. You can find pictures anywhere. You can find humor even in a cemetery. So why not, right? So look for graphic elements as you're walking along in the street. So there's a bicycle chained to a post, great wheels, great rim. Take the picture of the bicycle, you line it up. But here, I was just waiting, using photography techniques, waiting for the right bicycle to roll through here. So this one's not moving, it's chained. This one's moving. Didn't want a car, didn't want a bus, didn't want a taxi. It had to be a bicycle. So it was a bike lane. So the bicycle went by, but it had to be going in this direction. You just wait, take the picture when it gets there. Pre-focus, set your focus and exposure. When it rolls through, just tap the shutter and you have it. So again, you can take, add emotion to your pictures. So found object, a little sad rocking horse at the end of an alley. Add Gaussian blur, add vignette, add a little bit of lens blur to it, and then make the picture that you're feeling. So there are a lot of special effects within your camera that you have access to, or you can use an app in order to get some of these special effects. So some of them are like panoramic we talked about. It's already built into your phone. Your phone has an amazing ability for close-up and macro. Some of the more modern phones you can get within, say, 2 to 3 centimeters. My phone right now, I can get probably within 2 or 3 inches. I don't have a close-up mode. You can use long exposures with apps, and now some of the apps actually have it built in. Multiple exposures using apps, or kind of like that waterfall effect I was showing you. It's really multiple exposures, and you can call a long exposure as a multiple exposure. And then texture effects using apps. So panoramic, traditional panoramic, you're going right to left using a horizontal, but you're not limited to the scenery. In other words, you don't always have to climb up to the highest point. You can go somewhere where, say, this is a train tunnel. So I only want the front of the train tunnel from here to here. And then so I just pan across and stop when I want to stop. And then use saturation, color saturation, contrast later in Snapseed to bring out all the colors and all the graffiti that's on the side of these old brick walls.
Over
So
on Facebook, Susan says that she'd be concerned that the lady trying on the sunglasses would have heard the click of the shutter and might have challenged about privacy.
So that's a good point. You can turn off the sounds of your phone because it is an electronic shutter. So the noise that you hear is all made up. And I believe, urban myth maybe, that Apple actually recorded the sound of a Canon AE1 shutter and uses that as the sound of its shutter. So that's Apple. I don't know what Android does, but all of the phones have the ability to turn off the sound, so you can just tap away and take pictures, and nobody knows you're ever taking pictures. That is a concern though with street photography. You may want to mute the sound of your shutter. And some big black cameras that have electronic shutters also have that ability, turning off the shutter sound, because it's not a real shutter that's clicking. Also vertical panoramic, so don't forget the vertical. So here you can start at the bottom with my own feet and go all the way up to the sky. So this is using a little technique, selective color and Snapseed, so reducing the saturation to make it black and white here. I'm in color. And then I added this lightning bolt in the sky. It was truly lightning and storming, but I didn't want to be out in the open at the top of a mountain in West Virginia during a lightning storm. So I took the picture and later on added the lightning that was there moments after I actually took the picture, and using alien sky. Or sometimes you want to take a picture of a tree, tall building, or something like that. You don't want to get the entire forest, just take a picture of the tree. Use your panoramic mode, start at the bottom, work your way up, or vice versa. So macro and close up, this is just get close. You can. So crop the square here, a little bit of blur on the edges, but also enhance the sharpening around so we can see the little parts, whatever that is, and the eye and that sort of thing here on this moth. So all it is just getting close, focusing, making sure you're careful about your focus, careful about your technique, that you're not moving during the exposure. Everything you normally think of for photography still applies to the phone. So again, this is another happy accident in that this bicycle during the high wheel bicycle race in Frederick was going by a sign. So this happened to be like a Coca-Cola sign. This happened to be like a real estate sign. And when you blend them all together, when you smear your camera going across, very, very happy accident that it kind of looks like a flag. So he was going through, I was panning using that technique, using the slow shutter app, the panning technique on the slow shutter app, trying to get those lines. I like that look, kind of that lenticular lens look shooting through glass. I liked it. And this is, to me, a much better picture than what it was originally. I already showed you this picture, but again, it's just multiple exposures using an app. And then another multiple exposure is taking a picture of a log cabin and then take a picture of a log, blend them together, and you get some texture in the sky. And then you can, which I didn't do in this picture, but you can mask out the area where maybe you don't want the log to be. So last inspirational quote of the evening is, inspiration exists, but it has to find you working, meaning you got to get out there and you got to do the work. You got to push the button, you got to take the pictures, then you can sit down and start editing and find out where you're going to go with that. But if you don't have anything in your camera roll, you can't do anything. So you just got to go out there and do it. And then as you take more pictures and as you continue to edit, the inspiration will come along, and then you'll think of other things to do. So anything else in the chat? Now's your time. Now's your opportunity to ask me anything about photography.
We'll give them a couple minutes to get their questions in. Diane did comment on the click noise. She said you could also put your earphones in and it stops the noise from occurring.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Diane. So there's several different ways of taking pictures on a phone. So if you put the earbuds in, you can use the volume key on your earbuds to take pictures. You won't get the noise. Again, also you can use your thumb to take pictures on the side of your phone using the volume key. You'll have to turn the noise function off, but you can use your thumb. So in other words, people aren't going to see you jabbing at your phone screen to try to take the picture. You're just holding your phone like you normally are and using your thumb as the shutter release. So there's two ways of doing it. Two other ways. So I'm going to run my commercial while everybody is thinking and furiously typing on their screen. So one last thing is I offer personal instruction, whether it's online or live. So if you're interested in that, contact me through my website, michaelkorenphotography.com, and we'll create a time we can meet. So I have several people that I do some tutoring online, and then also live. I'll meet you live somewhere, Baltimore, Washington area, My rates are posted on the website if you choose to engage in that. Uh, Pretty much cover anything. It's not just iPhones. I am a photographer, and if you have something photography related you need, I'll let you know if I can do it. If I can't do it, I'll let you know, or I'll help you find somebody that can help you. So I do teach at Capital Photography Center. I'm one of their many instructors, and I teach specifically smartphone photography. I teach iPhone photography. I do teach a class about composition, essential techniques. So we go out on a photo walk and we actually take pictures and we do a critique of those pictures. And I do teach a street photography class. So these are the dates coming up. I have one this weekend. Street photography is at Lafayette Square. This is a recurring class, so if you can't make it this weekend, and I think the class is already sold out, there will be another one coming up. There's still spots available for the May 7th class in composition and the smartphone class, or on the mall, photo walk using smartphones only. And that's later in May. And then if you want to be a little closer away from DC, closer to Baltimore, I do a composition field shoot in the harbor at the Museum of Industry. And then back to DC, Penn Quarter, we're doing another smartphone field shoot. Then I do teach at Montgomery College, Lifelong Learning Institute. These are hybrid classes, some online, some live. And those are during the week in the evening, and they're made for adult learners. So it's rather than a one seminar where you're getting, say, 4 hours of instruction, this is maybe 8 to 10 hours of instruction split over 4 to 5 weeks, 2 hours a night. So they start this summer, and it'll be the same classes in the fall. All right, thank you so much. I'm just going to stop sharing, and then if you have any questions, I'll entertain your questions.
It looks like we have no more questions left. We did share your website while we were trying to get you back up, so we went through your website a little bit while we were waiting for you to come back. And,
good.
I want to thank you very much for joining us tonight. We look forward to, and we thank everyone for joining us on Facebook. We look forward to seeing you all next week at our business meeting. A direct link will be sent out by John. Have a great evening. Goodbye.
All right, goodbye. Thanks so much.